welcome. Welcome, welcome. Let me just double check some. Okay, so welcome today to our very first painting in the new Fun and Flourish painting with Byrdie group. If you just discovered the group and are not familiar with the previous painting kind of series that we were doing, we had started out the year with doing a live painting on Redbyrd Designs page every Thursday, just to encourage myself and others to paint more, to develop a practice for painting. And so we were doing that as a paint party and creating events and all of that, and doing it, like I said, right in on our main page. And then we took a couple weeks off. We were in the middle of a launch for our Redbyrd retreat group, and we had that open, and we're painting for that. And then we kind of thought about it and decided to rebrand and restructure those painting tutorials, paint parties that we were doing. So we wanted to put it in a group, a private group, where we have a little bit more we're not wide open on the internet, I guess you could say. So being in a group hopefully will give you guys courage to share your work. I know when we were doing it just right on Redbyrd retreat, people would send me their paintings, which was awesome. I love to see everyone's work that they've done. And so I'm hoping with the group that we're able to share right in the group, and develop a community of artists and encourage one another and flourish while having fun. So that is the new group, and welcome. So glad you're here. Feel free to invite friends and family who you know that might enjoy painting along. You can gather inside of this group and share your work and connect if maybe you're miles apart or something. So feel free to invite those as others as well. Okay. And I typically don't go a whole introduction like that without checking to make sure I'm in the right spot and all of that. So I'm hoping everything's okay. I usually start off and say hi and then check, and I forgot to check. So let me grab my phone here and make sure everything's okay. Oh, there I am. So I'm in the right group. And there's volume. Yay. Okay. And if you're new here, I guess, my name's Byrdie Larsen, and I run Redbyrd Retreat, and so welcome. I guess I should say my name too. Okay. All right, so let's get into it. Well, before I start, all of the paintings that we do, I will offer a tracer and supplied list, but they're just suggestions. Use whatever colors that you have on hand. Use colors that speak to you, that inspire you, that are your favorites. And don't get hung up on color names or brand names. Again, use whatever you have on hand. If you have a like today we are using a green lagoon from Deco Art for some of this background, but if you don't have that, just look at the shade and find a light colored teal, turquoisey color, and that would work just as well. So I do supply them, but again, they're just suggestions. So don't let that stop you from painting. If you don't have those exact colors, don't feel like you have to rush out and get those exact colors. Use what you have, and it will turn out great. The idea behind this is just to get us painting, and doing some fun little paintings and growing from that. All right. So supply lists and tracers, then going back to that, are located on our website. There is a link in the welcome announcement, and it allows you access to our free library of all the tracers and all of the supply lists of the videos that we've done since the beginning of the year. And you do have to sign in and create an account to gain access to that library, and then once you're in there, you can go through and download all of them if you want, and paint from all of those. The website also has the link back to where the videos live. So prior to this group, all the videos are stored on Redbyrd Designs Facebook page, in the videos tab, but the website will, I think it does. I might have to check that. I think we have the link back to that along the top there. And then starting this month, May, all the videos will be in this group that you can access later for replay, or whenever you can catch some time to play, or catch some time to paint. So if you need those, feel free to grab them. All right, so let's move over to the overhead camera and get started painting. Another thing to note is, prior to the group, we were painting on 11 by 14, and again, just to simplify it and to make it easy to paint and get into that painting mode, we did switch our format to go down in size to a 9 by 12, which is a standard mixed media pad. And so that's the, you'll typically just see this on one sheet. It's going to fit on your 9 by 11, and it will fit right into your mixed media pad. Now, if you want to do it something bigger than that or smaller, go ahead and take those PDFs and scale them up or down however you want to do it. They are free for you to use in any manner that you choose. But that's going to be the new format, is 9 by 12. Again, just to make it a little easier to just go right into that sketchbook, as opposed to trying to find different sized paper. Now, if you guys come and decide, you know, well, our mixed media pads, I guess 11 by 14, or you know, you enjoy that size more, just let me know. After a couple of these, if we find 11 by 14 is a better size for painting, I'm not opposed to switching it up either. So I'm just trying to get in here and paint, and if size changes, that's okay too. We'll go with the flow and make it work. Okay. Let me just turn this around so we can get a free part of my palette here over, so you can see some color mixing going on. Okay, and then we have room for, and this is another reason maybe why it went down, is I'm able to get this whole thing in the screen, so that you can see the original, you can see what I'm painting, and then also get a very good view of my palette as we mix colors. Alright, so I'm not going to trace this on quite yet. I'm going to put my background in first. I've created a wash, color wash type background, and so we're going to put that in first, and then we will come in with the tracer. So for the wash I'm using, well, let's talk about my paints that I'm going to use today. So I've got a white and a black. I've got that Deco Art Green Lagoon. I've got a Burnt Umber. King's Gold, Kelly Green, a Country Gray, and a bright yellow. And those are our colors today. And then for brushes, we are just using a large flat, a small flat, and a couple different sized rounds. Let me get my brushes washed here. Okay, so I've got my different sized rounds here. Like I said, a large round and a medium, or a medium and a small is fine. And then a liner brush. We'll need a large flat for the background, and then for the petals to start with, I'm going to use a small flat. And we kind of vary between the round and the flat for those petals. So those are the brushes that we'll use. Alright, let's go get our background in. We're going to start with a little bit of that green lagoon and the Kelly green. I love these two colors mixed together. I think they just go so well. They combine nicely. Alright, so like I said, I've created this wash, and so I'm just going to even just put a little bit of water on my paper here. Not a lot, just a quick little dip in my water cup. Get a little bit of wet out. Then I'm going to grab a little more water and kind of mix it in with that green lagoon. I'm using my large flat here, and we're just going to start by putting some color in. The other thing is, I'm not taking my paint all the way to the edge. I'm keeping these really fun raw edges. And so I've created this L shape here for the blue. And then going into the water, I'm not really washing, I just went and picked up some water. I'm going to grab some of that green, water down a little bit of that green here on the side, and go the other way with it. Okay, now I'm going to go grab some more blue and just start blending those colors together. Grab a little more water, help push that paint around. You're just creating a fun wash. So depending on what color you want to be more dominant on your background, you'll just grab more of that color and blend it in. So I'm picking up now just more of that blue. I want that blue to be the more dominant color, so I'm blending that into the green. So when you're painting on loose paper like I have here, one, you could just take it out of your book if you wanted to paint on a flat surface like this and tape it down like I am. I just recommend that you do use paper that is over 100 pounds in weight to help eliminate or lower the amount of buckling and warping. All paper is going to buckle and warp a little bit, but the heavier the weight, the less that happens. So I am in the process of ordering 9 by 12 heavyweight paper. This paper that I'm using right now is only 90 pounds, and so I have a lot of rippling right here, which is fine for now, but I am going to get some different paper in instead. So I like to paint free from my book sometimes, and so I like to have some loose leaf paper to do that with. Alright, and then if you wanted to even go a step further and blend it a little bit more, you can use a baby wipe and even just kind of lift some of that color up. So if it got a little too dark, you could take that baby wipe and just brush around your background here. I kind of want this center area to just be a little bit lighter. So I'm pulling away a little bit of that paint from the paper. You don't want to brush too hard, especially depending on the weight that you're using. Could damage that surface of the paper, so be careful with that. Just doing a light brush of the color here. Okay, so I'm going to blow dry this real quick, just to get it dry and so we can move on to the next step. Give me just a second, sorry for the noise. A blow dryer is a great tool to have if you are painting and you're short on time. You can really speed the process up. If you do use a blow dryer, be aware of how close you're holding your blow dryer to your surface so you don't crack your paint. I've had that experience where I was trying to blow dry some paint. I had some pretty thick paint on there. I was trying to create some texture. I blasted it with my blow dryer, got it a little too close, and that paint just cracked and separated, which was a bummer. So be careful of that. You don't want it to get too close. And try not to use too much heat either if you can. If you have that option on your blow dryer. Okay. So I am just gonna center this on my paper. The other thing to note about the tracers are they are not aligned to any of the edges of your surface. There's no alignment there. You always want to just take that center element or the image that we're painting and center it how you want to on your surface. This edge, the edges of the paper don't relate to the edges of the surface at all. So we'll just eyeball it. I'm going to tape it down here. Let me grab my graphite paper. Slide this under here. And grab a pencil, and then we'll just quickly come out and trace this element here, or this sunflower I should say. And you just need to use a medium pressure here, nothing too crazy, nothing too hard. We don't want to have a huge heavy line around our surface. So I've traced the center of my flower here, and you'll notice that I brought there's a gray line right here, and this is the full center if we were to see it, if we pulled back those petals. And I just wanted to put that there so that we could get a sense of where the center of that flower is. Hi Anne, she says, hello, where will we find the tracers? So the tracers are on the website, and there's a link in the announcement, the welcome announcement, which should pop up at the very top of the discussions. It takes you to my website, and then just log in with your account and go to the fun and free library, and we're hosting them all there. So again, I'm just creating that center, and I've created my base here, but I'm not going to come through and trace the outer edges. You are more than welcome to do that if you just want to kind of get a general guide to where the petals are going to be. But I'm going to leave those off for now and show you how we're going to just create this really fun random petals without that. So we have that circle here. This is our center. We're going to cover up a good portion of this side of that. We've got our base coming down here, and then our leaf and our vase. All right. Let's get some color out. We're going to need more color. I'm going to start with the burnt umber and black for our center. And then we've got some of this country gray for the tabletop. And then we'll get our yellows out. This King's Gold from Apple Barrel is probably my favorite yellow. It's just a really great mustardy yellow. Okay, so let's start with the center of our flower so we can get that in and dried, and then we can come in with the petals. So I'm going to take my medium round or a large round, either one works, and I'm going to load it up with that burnt umber. Then I'm going to dip it in the black. So I've got both colors on my brush, and I'm just going to fill in this oval here. At this point, this is just our base color, so I'm not concerned about creating a lot of texture or using my brush strokes a certain way to fill that in and make those little sunflower seeds. I don't know, are they seeds right away? I'm not sure what they're called, but the little, they look like little dots inside. So this first one, we can just get that filled in without worrying about creating that texture. Okay, I'm not going to wash my brush. I'm going to go right into the country gray here and pick that up and put my tabletop in. I'm creating that really fun raw edge painting, so I am not worried about covering all this blue down here from my background. I kind of want that peeking out. And that country gray is mixing just really nice with the burnt umber on my brush and creating just a fun kind of worn wood look for my background. Okay, and I'm going to go grab just a little bit of that black and streak a little bit of some black around the bottom of my vase to create a shadow. So you want to think about where you want your source of light to be coming from. And in this case, the source of light for me is coming from the upper left here. My flower's kind of pointing towards that. And so that means that my shadow is going to happen on this side of my vase here. So I'm just lightly pulling that black through that gray down there. quick little wash. I forgot to get white out. Let's get some white out. Okay, and then let's fill the vase in. So we're just kind of working our way up the painting. Paintings are all about layers, and to keep moving forward, we kind of have to hop around and work on different things at different times. And I've got this vase here that kind of bows out a little bit, and I've kind of lost that here. So I'm going to try and just pull that back out. My vase might get a little bit bigger, but that's all right. I got lost in translation there. Just kind of bump that out right there. There we go. Okay. All right, and then along the top up here, I'm going to grab a little bit of some black, just a very titch on my brush to create this gray back part of my vase. So the vase has this circular top, but when we're looking at it at the side, we see more of an oval. And so this part right here is the front, and then this back, or this top of that oval is the back, and then in between we want to paint gray. Essentially, we're looking inside the vase right there. Alright, and then since I've got white on my brush, I'm going to just streak some of that down below and kind of catch some highlights on my table. Alright, so we'll give our brush a wash here. And we will get into our leaves and our stem here. So I'm going to create a couple different shades of green. I'm going to pull some of this green off to the side and grab some of this burnt umber to mix with it. This is just going to give me a really great green, a dark forest green. I've got this darker green, so I'm going to try and create a couple different shades of green to work with. Okay, this is going to be my base, so I'm going to just kind of get this color in here. I've got this bottom of the sunflower that's kind of peeking out. We've got the stem that comes down into the vase, and it's going to end right at this bottom of that oval. This is the front of the vase, and so we need that to come down, and it's going inside there, and so it's covering up part of that back bit and stops at the front there. Alright, and then we can get our leaf filled in here, and my leaf is kind of wilted and turned and twisted, so it's kind of just a big funky leaf here. Okay, so our center is dry now. We're going to move into our sunflower. I'm going to start that first coat on that. I am going to use my small flat for this. And this is not the flat I want, so let me find my flat. There we go. Okay. I'm going to use that King's Gold. I'm going to start with that dark color first. And I'm going to start by putting in the petals that are on the back side of the flower. So I'm going to start at the top here, or somewhat of the top here, work my way around, and then stop here, halfway. And we're just going to start from the edge. We're going to pull some color out. And this flat brush really makes some very interesting petals. We don't have really a petal shape, but it's really fun to get some different shapes and sizes and just something a little bit different than our standard sunflower paintings. Okay. Remember, this is just the first coat, so we're just getting this dark base down. Kind of looks like a sun right now. Okay. All right, so then from this point around this front part here, our petals are going to go that same way. So we're going to cover up that small section of the center here. So we're going to start, I'm going to kind of just start here and then work my way around. But we're going to start at the bottom of, or the, I guess this would be the top of that stem, that back piece, and we're going to flick our brush towards the light, essentially. So we're just going to go like this. We're going to cover up that center a little bit. Okay. And then we have some, when we're looking at a flower like this, this area can get a little bit tricky. We've got some petals that are coming this way. And then we also then have some petals that kind of curve out, so it's kind of meeting up with these petals. So what I'm doing is I'm kind of just flicking it out. So I'm starting here and I'm going to flick out to create that petal that's kind of going outward a little bit. Came around the top here, kind of just coming in, and then this last one here, we're kind of coming out, and we come over that petal even a little bit. There's a little kind of a funky overlap, but as we add color, it all works out. Okay. So my back is done, and we're just gonna come back, or I mean it's dried a little bit, so I'm gonna come back in with a little bit more color here. Just adding a little more of that dark. Okay. And then kind of just, well, that's a little bit still too wet. I'm just pulling paint up. So we're going to have to let this sit for just a little bit. And so while our flower is sitting, let's go work a little bit on our leaves and our vase. So I'm going to start with this vase. I want to add a little bit of more shadow to it, and then we can add some fun pattern to it. I have the white loaded on. I'm going to grab some of that country gray, and I'm going to just streak some of that here on the back side of the vase, coming around that front little lip right there. If you get a little too much gray, just add a little bit of white to your brush and blend that in. Then I'm also going to come around this bottom little bit with that gray. And if your white needs a second coat in some areas, this is the time to do that. You can still see a little bit of that blue down in there, peeking through there. Okay. Alright, so then I'm going to go to my liner brush here. I'm going to go to that black, and I've just created some stripes along this area where it got a little bit wide, kind of a funky shaped vase. You could do any sort of pattern that you want, and because it's kind of rounded and it's wider here, more wide, I've also made my stripes kind of a little bit of a curve, so they're going to curve as I bring them in. Not a lot, just a hair. This vase kind of reminds me of something that might be a little handmade and a little rough around the edges. So having perfect stripes is not really a big concern. Just put some fun geometric shapes. Geometric shaped vase here is really what we're going after. Okay, and then I'm going to just take this black that I have on my brush here and darken up the shadow just right under the vase here a little bit, kind of pulling that black out a little bit. Defining that shadow just a little bit more. So I had a little bit of that dark gray that was a mix between the country gray, and I had some black on it, and it created this really dark gray underneath, but we needed just a little bit more, so I'm pulling a little bit of black in there. I'm going to put a little black to define my tabletop or my surface back here. And then we can add a little bit of black around the edges of our vase. Just quickly define a few edges here to help pull those out. Then I'm going to switch to my small round, and we're going to move to the stem and leaf here. So I'm going to come in with just that green, just the Kelly green now. Kind of streak some of that in there, the areas that need that second coat. You can still see a little bit of that blue. And then I'm going to take some of that green off to the side. I'm going to grab some yellow and create a lighter green. Something to use as my highlight. I'm going to streak some of that up in the top part here. We can add a little bit of that to our stem. And I'm going to get just a little bit more blue out. I love streaking blue through my greens. I'm just adding some blue streaks in here. Okay, let's go back to that green. I kind of got a little bit crazy with that blue. Let's just blend that in just a little bit. You can add some dark back in if you want to. Kind of play around with those greens for a fun leaf there. I'm going to grab just a little bit of yellow on my brush and maybe even streak some yellow in there. Brighten it up. And I'll dip into that white, add a white streak. Okay, all right. I'm going to do a quick wash before we get back into the sunflower. I'm going to grab some of that blue and I'm just going to add some fun little streaks of blue in my vase. It might be reflecting off the background. And I'm going to add some blue in my tabletop here, bringing out that color a little bit. Kind of covered up my shadow here, so I'm going to try and cover that back up. I lost my shadow. There we go. Okay, so let's move to the sunflower and finish up the sunflower, and then we're almost done. So I am going to use my medium round for this. So now I'm switching to a medium round, which is going to give me just a little bit of a different brush stroke for my petals. I'm going to load it up with this King's Gold. Actually, I'm just going to pull some of that off to the side, grab some of that yellow and blend those two together to get a mid-tone color between the two before I go directly into that bright yellow. I've got that, and then we are just pulling from the center. I'm going to start my brush at the center and start adding little brush strokes from the center out. And here we're starting to see a little bit more of the more defined petals. A little bit lighter in color. Okay. Then I'm going to grab that just bright yellow on my brush. I'm not washing it. I'm just going to let those colors coexist on my brush. Grab just that yellow and streak that in. And we already have color down, so it's important to just use a really light pressure, just kind of layering the colors on top of each other. And as we do this, it's going to kind of blend together and create some really great shades and different gradients of this yellow on our petals. Okay. Alright, so now we've got this mix of the bright yellow and the King's Gold. And so from here we're going to grab some white and mix it in and even get it a little bit lighter. It's a little creamy yellow. And just with some light pressure, because it's still wet, we can start to layer that color in there. And I'm not concerned about going over my brush strokes exactly. I've kind of tried to keep them varied so that we still see some of that dark, then we've got that mid-tone, and then we come in with that light color. So we can see all of those great shades in our sunflower. And then we're going to take it one step further. Now we're just going to grab white on our brush. Again, we have not washed our brush. We're going to streak some white through these petals. Now this one is, we're just going to do sparingly. We don't want it to get too light and overtake that yellow. But we're creating these great highlights kind of on the tips of these petals there. And when you're creating your petals and your layers, think about also kind of maybe giving your petals just a little bit of an arch and making them go a little bit in different ways, because the sunflower's petals aren't all uniform. They're not all going the same way. And so you can have one going straight out, maybe one that kind of curves down, or one that curves up. So kind of try and think of doing that as well when you're creating your petals. So here on this front side, I am purposely not taking that streak of white all the way down. This area right here is kind of hidden from the light, so we want that to be a little bit darker, and I might even come in and add a little bit of that pure King's Gold to that, just to help bring that back into the shadow a little bit. Okay, so I'm going to give my brush a quick wash, and I'm going to grab some of that King's Gold actually. So this got a little bit light, so let's grab some of that and just kind of pull some of that dark. I'm putting my brush right on top of that greenery and just flicking a little bit of that darker mustardy colored into my petals there. Okay, now I've got this hard line, so let's grab some of that creamy yellow. Maybe try and blend that back down a little bit. Get those two colors softened up. There we go. So just play around with your colors, your shades, till you get it the way you want. And I got a drop of water right there. See if I can pick that up without getting my colors too blended. There we go. So just bounce back and forth between your shades, your white, your yellows. Just play around with those. Okay. All right, so one last step. We have our center here, which is just that solid brown, and we want to pull some color into that and give it a little bit of texture. So we are going to go back to that burnt umber, and I'm going to start by, and I'm using my large round here, And I'm just going to start going around the edge, grab a little bit of black in there, and dabbing up and down with my brush. Just a really light stippling is what we're creating here, giving it that texture of those, I'm not even sure what they're called, I should find out. But I'm working around that edge to soften that edge as well, so I don't have that hard line where my petals are meeting that center. Okay, and then I'm going to just bring that brown and kind of just come into that same oval half arc, bringing that stippling all the way around, working my way in between the petals that are overlapping. So here is, if you had any petals that you didn't like, or maybe got a little bit crazy, here is where we can kind of clean those up and fix those if need be. Okay, and then we want to create that circle of, it's kind of a warmer color, it's almost an orangey color in some of those sunflowers. So I've got my burnt umber on my brush. I'm going to dip it into that King's Gold. So I've got both colors, and now I'm going to just lightly bring that King's Gold in and create a line or an arc around my center here. Okay, then I'm going to go grab some white, and we'll add some white, create some highlights. And if you get too much, you can just go back over it with a little bit of the brown and lighten it up a little bit if it gets to be too much. And then I also added a little bit of blue just for some fun in my center here. I always like bringing my background colors into my foreground a little bit with different ways, adding a little stippling of color with it, or a streak of color on the vase, or even some on the tabletop and stuff. I think it really just helps tie it together. I just can stipple around in that center, adding some fun texture. Just dabbing up and down now, going between the black and the burnt umber and adding a little bit of white, adding some blue, some yellow in there. But our goal is to always kind of stay in this arc to help portray that there's that center circle there, that, and we're only seeing that half circle. Okay, that's it. That is our sunflower painting today. So make sure that you sign your work. I would love to see your finished product. That's what this group is all about, is sharing our art, because when we share our art, when we step out of our comfort zones and put our art out there, we get encouragement. That's what this group is for, to encourage and lift one another up. The more we get encouraged, the more courage we get, and then we want to create more art, and that's kind of the goal. It's this great creative circle. So I'm going to name this one. I'm just going to create a label down here. I'm going to say, let's see, where am I at? So I have an idea for a series of flowers. So we're going to create a fun label at the bottom. Okay. And then I will sign my name. that is our painting for today. I hope you guys enjoyed that. Like I said, if you create this, if you paint this, please share in the group. I would love to encourage you on your journey and see your rendition of this. Everyone's going to be a little different. That's the great thing about art. Nobody sees the same way, so nobody paints the same way. Okay, let me bring it up. Sure it's going to focus there. Let's see, I've got some right there. There we go. There we are. All right, well, thanks for watching, and I hope you're able to paint this and get some creative time in this week. I will be back next week with another flower painting. I've got this kind of series in mind for a set of paintings, and so we'll continue kind of doing this type of thing for the next couple weeks. And I'm glad you're here, and have a great week. Thanks for watching, guys, and we'll talk to you later. Bye.